Welcome to Men Talk Ubuntu podcast. Our guest this episode is Claude Barbé-Brown, a man whose heritage stems from the Seychelles, a man rich with many talents, a manager, a music lover, martial arts, Muay Thai fighter, boxer, artist, mental health advocate with experience in radio broadcasting and media marketing, inspiring the next generation to aspire for more. Claude, we are honored and pleasure to have you here. Please tell us about your story and journey.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here on your podcast, and thank you for reaching out. I am Claude Barbé-Brown, and I guess I have as described, I have quite a mixed background. I've got a degree in art. That's what I studied at university. I'm from Hackney originally, but I did a lot of my growing up and schooling in Oxford because my mum's actually a vicar, so she's a Kettering vicar. So we moved to Oxford so she could do a theological degree. So I was there from 13 till I was 19, and then I went to Cardiff and studied broadcast media and popular culture, and actually left that degree and came back to London and worked in PR marketing. And then I was really thought I was convinced that media wasn't the thing for me, and I went back to Oxford and I did a art foundation, and then to Bristol and did my degree in art and visual culture at Bristol UE. So quite a mixed bag there. While I was doing my art foundation, I was part running a gallery from some friends who, when we were in sixth form, started an arts charity called Art Is Just a Word. So we used to do a lot of community art projects, and we had this art gallery above a fashion boutique called Lola Pelosa, which is run by some really great people, the Macreadys. So we used to have this little gallery upstairs. And when I moved to Bristol, I started getting more into youth work. So while studying, doing my degree in Bristol, I was doing youth work in South Gloucestershire in areas like Kingswood and Yates and things like that. And used to have a little bus, which used to drive around, or a double-decker bus, quite a big bus. It had like decks on it and like a few games consoles and stuff. So we'd go out to different areas, and then the kids would come on, do their youth sessions on the bus. They could get all sorts of advice, sexual health advice, and other sort of provisions. We even had sometimes some like tester kits and things for that, so that the kids can make sure they're being safe, and all sorts of different incentives with the police and stuff to like take down dispersal orders, like where kids would gather, but the police constantly like disperse them around, sort of thing. And in some of these more quiet areas, there's not much for them to do, so it's about trying to create some sort of community link with the police, so it wasn't like there was this constant button of heads and the kids weren't constantly sort of being just pushed around, sort of thing, all over the place. And obviously the police weren't wasting their time dispersing kids all the time either, sort of thing. So like different projects like that. So when I finished uni, I then started working for a school called St. Christopher's School, and I used to be a care support worker there. So working with autistic children, and I had a lot of experience with that from working in a project in Oxford called the Parasol Project, which is still going. And that was all about inclusion. So it was a basic inclusion-based charity, and we'd have all sorts of kids for all sorts of backgrounds and different abilities as well. So like a good mix. And so the idea behind that is, some of the just regular kids got this experience of all these other different kids, and for different kids that maybe had disabilities or autism or whatever was going on, they had the chance to integrate and do activities that maybe they wouldn't otherwise do. And sort of the idea behind that is like with all the kids together, they sort of support each other as well. And that's a great project that I've worked on with for years, like 9 years. I'd come back to Oxford every school holidays and do this project, and we'd take them out like canoeing or like laser tag in the woods or all sorts of stuff. Really, really awesome. So eventually I moved back to Oxford, and I used to work at a girls' school out there, Didcot Girls, and I was the art technician for a bit. And then moved to London, and for a period when I came back to London, so I used to work at Bang Radio, which is now the Heat London 103.6 FM, which is up in Harlesden. And so I worked there as an assistant manager for like quite a while, and I had my own show there. I used to do radio as well in Bristol. So this is the funny thing, I went to study art, and then I when I went to study art, I got back into the media, started doing radio broadcasting, writing for Crack magazine. I don't know if you know, it's a free music magazine that comes out in London, Bristol, and Berlin. So I used to write for those lads and stuff, and do some wicked interviews with like people like Jest and all sorts. Like, yeah, it's just a really fun experience. The same with the radio, actually. So got into interviewing different people. Pete Rock was one of my interviews. That was a really special experience. Friend Eva Lazarus, I don't know if you know of her, but she's big on the UK scene, like really good artist. And so, like, you know, that was fun and cool for a long time. And then while I was in London, so after the radio job finished, I was just sort of I've always done different sorts of work, and always like, just, if you know, being of the attitude that when you're out, you just need to work somehow. Do you know what I mean? I need to have a job. I need to, you know. So I had lots of different things going on, and I was working in bars for a bit and schools in the day, and working with this teaching agency called Teach Now, and in various schools around London. And then eventually, this opportunity came up at Inspire EBP, which is where I work now, and I started there as a program officer, and I used to deliver our STEM program, so science, technology, engineering, and maths program called I Discover, to primary schools around Hackney, Camden, and Islington. So this charity I work for is an education business partnership. So the idea is that we sort of provide and create and facilitate work-related learning scenarios. Basically, we work with a whole bunch of companies, and it's all about introducing kids to these like professionals. So we have programs, and the programs will be a mix of, we give sort of lesson plans and resources to the school to like do their theme for the week. So we give them a different science theme to concentrate on for the week, and then they'd have trips and sort of professionals from industry like come in to the school and explain about their work. So like, say like year 2, we'd have something like my biology, so then we'd have in maybe doctors and neuroscientists to like talk about what the field they work in. And like food would be food science, so the kids would go on a trip to a restaurant or something, and then we'd have people from a grow project in, and they'd tell them about like, you know, growing food and sustainability and things like that. You know, year 4 we had showcase, so that was about light and sound engineering. So we take the kids to a theatre, they meet the technicians, see how all the technical equipment works. So it's also about introducing to these jobs that aren't necessarily the obvious, you know, like because obviously like when we talk about kids' aspirations and things like that, a lot of we don't really think about actually like, why aren't kids aspiring to like this or that job or this or that industry? It's like, well, when have we informed them of the existence of these jobs and these industries? And you know, you can't aspire to what you don't know exists. So I think that's the most important thing. It's this introduction to like all these other concepts and work concepts, and that's what's really good for the primary school kids. And especially studies show that, you know, from an early age, kids can build up sort of negative perceptions or assumptions about who can do what jobs. There's a lot to do around challenging stereotypes and breaking past the status quo of what they see. You know what I mean? Because obviously, whereas like, and even if the industries and companies themselves are very keen on pushing diversity and improving in that realm, the reality is that isn't the reality right now. So, you know, we're trying to get somewhere, but even, and so we try to, as our best as well, to recruit diverse volunteers for the kids to see, so they can see themselves in the volunteers that come in. And depending on the industry, that's sometimes easier said than done, but like but it's a really good way to introduce them to all these sort of concepts. So I started out doing that, and then eventually I've moved into, like, considering my previous backgrounds, I did a lot of PR marketing throughout my life, like before I went back to Oxford to do the art foundation, when I was doing PR marketing, which is more commercial sort of stuff. And then obviously at the radio station, a lot of marketing and stuff around there. And now I've just utilized that for the charity aspect for Inspire. So now I'm the marketing manager at Inspire, and like, you know, trying to promote our activities and what we can offer, which has obviously changed a lot over the last year during the pandemic. And we've had to be quite creative in what we have, and sort of transition to sort of all these virtual programs, which then comes with a new set of challenges like accessibility, to like, you know, obviously like a lot of kids don't necessarily have technology at home to access these online lessons and things. So things like that have been a bit of a challenge, and obviously the schools are really like under the cosh right now with COVID and everything they've had to do, and it's, you know, they've had to react to quite a chaotic situation as well. So it's been very interesting sort of trying to still engage with them and work with them during this time, and try and be there to support them in whatever way we can. And yeah, so that brings us to now. And I guess like I do other projects as well. So as you said, I'm an artist. So I still like, you know, been drawing and producing art now and again. I haven't been doing much big art production, but I used to make very big artworks. I used to make like installations, like a room that you could walk in and explore, and it'd be around the sort of narrative or character I created that would sort of talk about certain concepts. And I was teaching life drawing before the pandemic and everything quite regularly. So like I'd go and teach that at two different like normal life drawing classes, but also like I would do this thing with my friends, um, and then we'd go and do hen do's and stuff. So we'd have a model and a hen do would come. It'd be like life drawing with all these crazy games. I won't go into the details too much, like, but it was some pretty funny stuff went down. Like, and then I been DJing as well and stuff like for a bit as well. And yeah, like obviously that started like a lot with the radio sort of thing, but I've done a little bit of live stuff. I'm like not a massive DJ or nothing like that, but I just love it. And I mean, I'm probably most likely to turn up to someone's house party and DJ that or something. That's probably what I find the most fun. But I've played like a few festivals and things. So like I've got friends who like used to run things like Soundwave Festival and stuff like that in Croatia. I played that. That's probably one of the best gigs I've ever done. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how big a stage I was on. You know, I thought they'd have me in a little tent or something on the tiniest PA. I got there and it was like a full stage and like these massive speakers. I almost lost my mind. And then played We Out Here like obviously the year before lockdown and stuff, which is a really fun new festival where they used to hold secret garden party. And then my girlfriend's a yoga teacher, so I also do stuff with and Bass, which is like a yoga festival. And we do this dub yoga thing where I sort of do this dub set and she teaches a yoga class to it. So like there's lots of little fun projects I like to get involved with. I also run Hammer and Tongue, which is a poetry slam. I run the Hackney version, so there's different Hammer and Tongues around the country, but we have our regional sort of competitions, and then at the end, the regional winners go and battle each other at the national final at the Royal Albert Hall in the Edgar rooms. So like I've been doing that for a while. So I do the marketing for Hammer and Tongue as well, and I'm one of the co-hosts. And yeah, and then sometimes I DJ, but we also have this amazing DJ called Close Up Things. He's phenomenal, like and really adds like he's like brings the comedy but through the DJing, you know what I mean, to the night, which is he's really quick. And yeah, so it's a really fun night. Actually, we had one this week, and so yeah, all sorts of things going on. But my main thing right now is Inspire and doing the marketing there.
Thank you, Claude. Thank
Yeah.
you. That goes beautifully into our next topic today. So, men talk basically, we talk about believing and achieving. But first, I am intrigued because, again, you're a man with many talents, experiences. Well, we are all intrigued to basically find out what is your mental health story?
My mental health story. So like for me personally, like, you know, I've been very fortunate and I've like not had like any sort of direct experience in my own life with around mental health issues, but I sort of have with obviously like increasingly as well, I would say, with lots of my friends and things like that. Like it's just something that becomes more common. And obviously with some young people I've worked with as well. So like it's something I've encountered, especially when I was doing some of the care work and with like, you know, sometimes with some of the autistic kids. And I remember it was a bit harder or took longer for people to really understand and diagnose if they had a mental health issue sometimes, because sometimes they might be non-verbal, you know, they don't really speak or something. So sometimes it's hard to tell what they're experiencing and how they're feeling and stuff like that. So it's something I've witnessed and learned from all sorts of different angles. And I think it's something that's quite important to me, because when so the white collar I was telling you about, I was training for White Collar Fight Club, and a big part of that for me was, like, you know, the amount of close friends I'd had that had really serious mental health episodes and experiences and stuff. And so I think really what like kicked me up the bum really was as well was at the end of 2019 and after the election, right? And I was like, oh my god, like I'm not a big fan of the Tories, let's just say, right? And I thought there's got to be a lot of things people need, you know what I mean? It's like, right, I've got to look at what like else I can do to like sort of try and do a little something to help someone, or that a little bit more, you know. And I was looking for all these different opportunities and other charities to support, and obviously working in the charity sector, I know how important like whatever support we get is to us, so I knew that would be the same for others. So I was kept seeing stuff like this White Collar Fight Club, and obviously I had a bit of a martial arts background, and I was like, yeah, you know, this could be something that's good for me, and actually maybe good for my mental health as well. I always find something that really helps my mental health is actually my physical health. You know, when I'm training and things like that, that can be a massive stress reliever, and you know, and a confidence booster as well, I find. So but I thought it'd be a really good thing to do. So I was raising money for that even after lockdown. So I did some online festivals, and that was raising money for Oxfordshire Mine and NHS charities together. So that's a cause I really believe in, and I'd had direct experience of like trying to be there for friends that had suddenly be going through a really massive mental health issue and things, and it's really hard, and I don't think it's something that's necessarily talked about enough. I think still, like, you know, people find it difficult sometimes still to talk about or acknowledge their own experiences with it. And I feel like for a lot of people, if they haven't experienced it, just don't sort of necessarily think about it or try to understand what it's like to try and exist with these mental health issues, if that's what you're going through. So I think it's something I really advocate for. I think there's some really great charities out there as well. Like Young Minds, I think, is an amazing charity. Like I for a lot of guidance for how, when we're thinking about how we engage with young people and what are their needs right now, I feel that's a really good charity to look to for like they have, and really what they offer as well to young people in terms of support and advice, I think is incredible. I was on obviously the NSPCC as well, I think is another amazing charity, like like they have a lot of good examples of thinking about that in the context of young people. But I think as well in this day and age, it's just something that like everything's changing so sort of rapidly, and people trying to learn to navigate that and adapt to these new situations, it's creating challenges, and I don't think we're always like as responsive as we need to be in addressing that and building support networks to sort of deal with that sort of thing. And yeah, so I think that's a really important thing. So that's why just the way I think about mental health issues, like I don't think it's like another thing. I think it's attached to a lot of other situations in our society and personal lives, whether that's you know, your housing situation, your education, your ideas of identity and self. You know, there's a lot of big conversations happening right now.
Could I ask you, Claude,
Mhm.
with what you've just referenced? I mean, I think thank you very much as well for sharing the details of those charities or organizations. I hope whoever is out there listening and needs that knows that they can reach out.
Mhm.
When you were younger, and because you've talked about this moving from Hackney to Oxford to Bristol
Mhm.
and trying all these different things, it seems like the pace of life was also relatively quick. Were you facing any challenges during those times, or perhaps as you've grown in your more adult years, or like you mentioned with other friends starting to mention all these things, how have you found maybe engaging with such organizations, or did you have people in your life who were helping you out when you were younger, or have you sort of always been relatively okay and solid, or
I mean, I've been mostly like I would say I've been mostly okay and solid, and but obviously, like, there's been challenges. I mean, moving to Oxford in the first place, was like quite an interesting experience. But I've met some of the best people I've ever known in my life from that experience. But when I first got there, obviously, as a 13-year-old black kid from Hackney, I was like, wow, like, this is different. Like, there's not as much variety as I'm sort of used to. And then, but like, I have to say, like, I feel very fortunate in my various experiences, and I feel like as well, I actually, coming from where I come from with the perspective I had, I, looking back, I really valued that. Do you know what I mean? Like, and going to Oxford, but then the experience of Oxford I value too is different. But I think I'm glad to have had both. You know what I mean? To like see them, to see different sort of ways of living a little bit, and yeah. But apart from that, I think I had one period really where I maybe was really struggling. I think when I was just before I left Bristol, like, and I was having this period where I was like in between jobs a little bit, and I had done a few little awful jobs, some awful, terrible jobs, I tell you, like, and I was hating life a little bit at that sort of time, but like, but then even through that, I was very fortunate, and I think the thing that makes me feel most fortunate is the people in my life, really. Like, that's something that's always made me feel kind of rich, so to speak. Can we say that? Like, the quality of the relationships I've had in my life, and so I've always felt like as well I have support, and I think I've also been able to ask for help if I needed help from friends or something like that, or family. You know what I mean? But then not everyone has that. You know what I mean? So like that, I feel like, well, yeah, very fortunate, but I also recognize that's not necessarily the norm for a great many people.
And I've also got another question regarding your identity as well. Like you say, you moved to Oxford because you said your mom was going and just trying to become a vicar.
Mhm.
And did your identity was it something you were aware of and conscious of and thinking about when you were in Hackney versus when you move to these other
Yeah,
places?
definitely. Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Like, I think if I'd stayed growing up in Hackney, I'd be like, I don't know how I'd be different, but I think I'd definitely be different in some way. Like, that. So that Oxford experience definitely changed a lot of things. Definitely changed what watered down my accent a little bit. But like, yeah, because it's a different perspective as well, and I suppose like the things like people growing up there think about isn't the same as the things in Hackney. People growing up in Hackney are sort of thinking about necessarily or concerned about, but in a lot of ways there's a lot of similarities too. You know what I mean? And even though you think of Oxford maybe or somewhere that's like a bit more rural and a bit more like middle to upper class or something, but actually there's all sorts of people there, all sorts of experiences, like not too dissimilar to anyone growing up in any sort of inner city area and stuff as well. Do you know what I mean? So that was interesting to see. And then there's certain things that like people don't know growing up in those areas as well, like, you know what I mean? So it's just like, just because their experience is different, so that's interesting dynamic too. But yeah, sorry, what was the question again? I sort of started talking. I forgot where we were going.
That's all good.
Yeah.
Now the
That means
question
you're
is,
having fun.
yeah, exactly. I was asking about your identity and whether those
Oh,
shifts
yeah.
brought it
Okay,
about.
so
That you,
then, yeah, I think how it formed my identity, because I did feel like a bit different to like everyone else around me, and I think, but I think that encouraged me to like. I sort of saw this like, and from quite an early age, I saw this idea of trying to fit in as kind of futile, and I didn't kind of understand. I had it for a little bit, and then I was like, "What am I doing?" And I think that then drove me to be quite sort of like, to be my own person. You know what I mean? I thought, and like, obviously, I just felt that was like the smartest thing to do and the best thing for me, and I think I've held on to that for a long time. I feel like with a lot of friendship groups as well, like, because I've moved around a lot, so I've had to leave people behind all the time. So I feel like sometimes quite a lot on the periphery of a lot of my friendship groups, and many of them, and they're all over the country, you know. So like Claude's not around all the time, you know, like I'll pop up every now and again, but that's okay. And but I feel like, you know, that sort of being okay with yourself helps you to form like in yourself as well, and comfortable with who you are helps you to form better and stronger relationships, I feel like. And so I felt like that transitioning from place to place has been like, for me anyway, like quite comfortable because of that, you know. And yeah, so I think that's how it's, and I suppose, like, you know, living in Wales as well, to again, that's a bit different again. And you know, probably not many people like me from Hackney that play rugby and things like that. I used to play a lot of rugby and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, all these different experiences that form your experience differently. And yeah, doing the art thing as well in Oxford, obviously that was quite a big thing. And but like quite different to them when you come to London and try and maneuver in the art scene here. You know, it's like very different sort of scenario. So all these different experiences, I think like the most important thing is as well to just learn from whatever experiences you have. Obviously, there's been like quite pivotal times in my life where I've changed my mind about what I want to be and who I want to be. And that's why I've ended up with such a mixed bag of probably experiences. But even if they didn't turn out as positive as I thought they would, like you know, you learn, as long as you learn from everything, then it was worthwhile. That's definitely something I really hold on to as well. Like, you know, you can't think back and like, oh, I regret that I did that, even though that time I told you about, I was having a terrible time in Bristol, right, doing some awful jobs, like, and going through that, you know, that helps you make better decisions going forward. I had this negative experience, so I don't, you know, here's what to take from it, here's what I learned from it, but maybe I don't want this to happen again in this sort of way, and then you can better navigate and avoid it later on, you know.
I love it. I love it. It's so captivating to obviously hear what has shaped who you are in terms of you being you know, a rich advocate, especially in the mental health and the support you've had. And as you quite clearly said, you know, not everyone gets the opportunity to have that. And another thing that really, you know, stuck out to me as well is that when you were talking about the different, you know, transitions and lessons, and I think when it comes to that, every single stage of your life has an importance in terms of a lessons, no matter whether it's good or bad or anything like that. And it's key to kind of hold those as important coordinates to basically help you travel and maneuver through, you know, even though you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's definitely there. But let me not digress. What I'm obviously intrigued to find out about, you know, you being a mental health advocate, what or who specifically shaped you, especially from, you know, from a young age all the way through to, you know, to being who you are today?
Okay, so definitely, like, I've got to say, obviously my parents, you know, to start off with, definitely, like, so, you know, so obviously, like, I think when people find out that your mum's a vicar, like, they imagine like quite this, some sort of strict religious background or something, and like, you know, and I suppose with some people, like, if you know, like, you know, we have make jokes about having black parents, right, and like, you know, how strict they can be and stuff like that. So, you know, like, there was a bit of that, but actually my parents have been like pretty open-minded, like, you know, throughout my life and stuff. So this is what I mean, like, you know, like, I totally buck that sort of trend or stereotype, you know what I mean? Like, they were strict, definitely, but they were also open-minded and super supportive of different things I wanted to try. So that's the first reason as well I've been able to try so many different things. There was none of this like, what, you know, we preset notion of what I should be, of what I should become, you know what I mean? Like, explore this, okay, you want to try this, are you sure you want to, this different thing, yeah, okay, like, then do that. And the main thing was that, you know, the emphasis was on trying hard at whatever it is you've decided you want to do, you know what I mean? Like, as long as you're actually going for it, and, you know, and like, you know, even at different times of my life. So when I was in sixth form in Oxford, I actually like initially didn't do well on my A levels at all. Like, I had to have an extra year on my A levels. So like, and I was lodging during my sixth form time as well. So my parents had moved back to London, back to Hackney, and they supported me to lodge and finish sixth form in London, because they moved back like halfway through my GCSE year, which would have been quite disruptive. Do you know what I mean? Like leaving at the school at the age of year 10. So they supported me in staying there, finish my GCSEs. And I was like, actually, I want to stay in Oxford and do my A levels here. So and they supported me in doing that. Like, so really, really fortunate. And then even when I had to do this extra year, which I really needed, I needed an A to like get into the unis I wanted to get into, which I got. Like, but like they supported me in that, and you know, and believed I could do it. Do you know what I mean? So as I said, like that really, really, I do feel very blessed and fortunate in that sense. And then I guess the mix of friends I've had growing up as well, and I feel like as well from having those two perspectives. When my parents were back in London during their 60 times, coming back to London on the weekends, seeing my peeps here, and then like going back and these very different people in Oxford and stuff. You know what I mean? But it's a good way to sort of learn and understand people, and then first going to uni in Cardiff, all sorts of new people and experiences there. And the Welsh identity is another thing again. Do you know what I mean? They're like interesting to learn and experience. Like some of the best mates even now, like they're all in Hackney too, of course, right? These days. So like, you know, everyone's here, everyone from Oxford, everyone from Wales and everything are down here, a few of them from Bristol as well. And and so all these different experiences, and I would say mostly people that have shaped my learning and experience, and like yeah, I think that they like inform us all the time. If you're paying attention to what's going on in people's lives, that's like, you know, it's such a big source of knowledge, you know. And I think that's really important. I think my mum is like, you know, she's that sort of person. She has really old school wisdom, you know, like, so like, you know, she'll struggle with things like, you know, I'm constantly having to do IT support for her and stuff like that. Anything sort of modern or new concept, sometimes she's like, what is this? You know what I mean? But she has this sort of old school wisdom where she sort of really understands people and sort of what they're feeling sometimes or what they're going through. And I've witnessed that, especially once you've decided to become a vicar, and you know all these situations she has to deal with, and things like when she used to work for DSS, you know, Social Security Office, and like, so I remember her talking about that experience and like obviously dealing with people that are really going through like a hard time, you know what I mean, who might be a bit destitute and stuff like that. So I've always had a good, and they've always done things with homeless people as well. That's something my parents have always done as well, which is again interesting to sort of learn about and understand, because like you just understand how different people can end up in all sorts of situations, and you can't really take anything for granted. You know, you have all these people that like with all these different lived experience, really different. They're like, you know, so diverse how people can end up where they end up and stuff. So I think that's a really humbling thing to think about as well, and to like to acknowledge, like, you know, there's so many ways that like anything can happen to us in our lives, so we've got to be understanding of others and supportive. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic, and I think that's a great message for all of us to really take on board right now, more than ever. I'm fascinated to see how that's really shaped you, and I think we can see how that's carried on throughout life. And it's interesting, again, like Ray said, to hear about your journey, how you've sort of come full circle with some of what you're doing. Could you talk a little bit about how that helps you help the next generation, the younger people that you now work with? And
yeah definitely. So like I guess like, so when I first got to Inspire, teaching about lots of different jobs, so my very varied background made it really easy for me to first like really do well in fostering, like building these relationships with different industry professionals and going into all these new places. I'm a guy that's very used to entering new spaces and new rooms and, you know, new environments and stuff. I feel quite comfortable even when I look out of place. I think that's an important thing, you know. It's like so you know, going to like UBS or HSBC or somewhere, having this meeting, booking these people, convincing them to do some volunteering, you know, and come into the schools and talk to the young people. And so, and obviously able to work out as well how to explain a lot of these concepts and to grasp them quickly. Do you know what I mean? So why does someone do this, or what's the model for this industry or this job and stuff like that? So, and then turn that into content and things that we could deliver to the kids. And then so that enabled me as well to work across the programs at Inspire as well. So I've delivered probably most of the programs that we do there at some point or another, which then now as the marketing manager really translates well into like when I'm trying to build stories about the work we're doing or around why we're doing it. It's really like helps, you know, I'm not just some marketing person trying to grasp it. I've been there and I've sort of done it and I've delivered it like firsthand. And so that really helps me sort of explain like these stories. And I suppose like thinking about and put it in the context of like sort of the external environment as well. So obviously like you need to constantly research what's happening, you know, in society, or we have to reevaluate what are the needs of young people and schools and teachers right now and stuff. And obviously working in education in various different levels. I've worked in primary, secondary, colleges, and like several different roles and stuff. So that really helps me understand, you know, education as well, for so things from that side too. And so like I guess that's what that gained understanding and experience just helps me like tie it all together and sort of get to a message that at a level where people can sort of connect with it. Because I guess when people think about charity work and things like that, as work-related learning isn't one of the first things that sort of jumps to your mind, right? You think about charitable needs, you maybe think of more homelessness and mental health and like, you know, protection of certain people or certain areas, you know. So this work-related concept thing, especially like EBPs used to be funded by local authorities very often, so they're less common now since the cuts and everything. And like, you know, and we're sort of privately funded mostly, you know what I mean, like from by different businesses and stuff like that. But they used to be much more common. So it's one of those things where it's like kind of sometimes hard to like get people to understand like why work-related learning is actually kind of very crucial for informing young people about what's possible in their futures, and for understanding that and to making that connection between education and work as well. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. I was go, um, and I love how you know, by the looks of it, even though you have been, you know, doing all these charitable things, like by the sounds of it, it started even way before you. You basically got that from your mother in terms of what she would obviously do. She would expose you to the, you know, people who are going through difficult situations, and it's so warming to obviously hear that, you know, you embrace that with opening arms and you continue to go beyond the call of duty and help, you know, all these different communities, children more especially, in terms of encouraging, empowering and elevating them as well. um and one thing that stuck out to me when you said that you do, you know, the research, what have you found in terms of, you know, such things as children, drugs, gangs, things like that? What have you found is the actual issues? I mean, you did mention the fact that, you know, it's that thing of they don't know what they don't know, so they're only exposed to so much. So as a result, they, you know, could
Yeah.
again this assumptions, but from my experience, it's always been the case. You know, me growing up in, you know, Stratford, for instance, the only thing I was ever exposed to, going to a predominantly black school, black boys school, the only thing I was obviously exposed to is, you know, bad activities related to gangs and things like that, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm intrigued to obviously find out, you know, your perspective from that side.
Well, I think like there's a lot of variables, isn't there? But like I suppose I would say a lot of the things to do around, if you're talking about like sort of gang and maybe like crime and stuff like that, firstly I'd be careful to not like, I wouldn't want that to be the characteristic of like young people from like our areas and stuff necessarily. I think there's a lot of diversity there, and I think obviously like but obviously having gone to school in Oxford and having gone and being someone from Hackney, I can see like how it's really interesting how, you know, this is a big concern for young people growing up now in Hackney and things, if you really ask them and stuff, you know, they really are very concerned about everything that's going on in our inner city areas. You know, it's one of their top concerns. And then also things like for young people, especially like things like the environment actually are like a top concern for them. It's something they're very, very aware of, you know. And then racism as well is something I think young people are really aware of and really switched on to as well. In ways that obviously like a lot of the kids in Oxford probably maybe aren't as switched on to, you know, and like because that's not their experience. But I do think a lot of this situation stems from economic issues. Do you know what I mean? I think the increase in these sort of things happening in the last few years can't be disconnected from the economic issues that are going on, rising cost of living, like stagnating wages, you know, like I'd like, you know, parents that are maybe struggling with their economic situation. It makes it easier for some of these gangs to recruit some young people and to pull them in. Do you know what I mean? So like everything is sort of connected, like, you know, cuts to youth services and like after school extra provisions and things like that. Do you know what I mean? Like cuts to spaces young people can be. It's all like feeds into what's happening and stuff. And the thing is, these young people have all sorts of ideas and understanding. And I think when they say the apparatus around them sometimes isn't obvious in the path out of that. Like, you know, if there is a negative thing or isn't obvious in like terms of what are their options, like, or and then mixed with that, there's still pervasive myths and negative things in society that tell them they can't amount to this or that, or they can't access this or that industry, or they can't be that. So a big part of our work is really challenging that and encouraging them to, like, you know, pursue whatever it is they're interested in. And this idea as well that you can't fail, you know, like don't, and that can be stop people from trying things, you know what I mean? When we need to break apart that whole like idea or perception that, you know, failure is part of the process, you know what I mean? Like and so we got to like make sure our young people know that, and that they're like don't feel like, oh, because this didn't work out, that's me done or anything like that.
Well, I think that's a powerful message to give out, that idea that failing doesn't make you a failure. And
No.
although it does crush us to some extent, and no one wants to do a bad job or to not succeed at something, it's having the support network and having that belief is a really incredible thing that can be developed.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it sounds like you've got an amazing amount of empathy towards people and young people as well. And I'm thankful that you also gave voice to the young people, where you're saying, actually, it's not just necessarily gangs or all these other things. It's also the fact that they have ideas, but maybe they don't always have the belief. And one of the amazing things that you're doing is helping them build this belief in themselves. And I feel like it's a belief that you've had because you've pursued loads of different careers. You've pursued loads of opportunities that have come to you. And sometimes we have the opportunities, but we're not brave enough to go for them or
Yeah,
to attempt them.
That, and I guess they don't see themselves in some of these like areas which they would want to aspire to as well. So that's a big thing. If you look at like, so I wrote an article recently about sort of race and equity and stuff like that. And if you look at sort of all our top boards and CEO positions and positions of power in the country, you know what I mean? It's really not that diverse a makeup, and you know, and then there needs to be more sort of considerations to like intersectionality as well. So like, you know, it's one thing like, you know, if you're a black male and stuff, and then another thing again for like black females or black people, LGBTQ or whatever, you know what I mean? So there's all these things we've got, and we've got to try and understand these things from different perspectives and how they the nuances of how they might affect people and stuff, and then try to counteract that, I guess.
Yeah, I think with your experience as well, like you mentioned, you worked at a school where it was all girls, and you've also worked in like spaces where it's boys, and obviously there's men. I suspect in part, you've got a great insight, but I suspect in part it's relatively easier to go to the young people and give them this encouragement. So my question is about how to have this conversation, but I'm trying to also then tie it to the tougher one, which is what about the older people
Older people
as well,
Yeah.
who might need this conversation as well, because
Yeah.
they're probably more likely to go, it's been like this for like 10, 20 years for me. It's not going to change. Or
Okay.
they might not see it as much. So it's the same conversation.
Yeah.
So if you've not, just how would you have it, even with the young people? Maybe we can apply that also to some
To
of
the
the
older
other
people.
people in our lives also,
Well,
myself.
I think with young people, sort of, you have to be careful how you package your messaging. So you don't want to give them too much information at certain ages and stuff. So I think you can tell them the same things, but there's a way to say the same things at the right sort of level, the right amount of information that they can sort of, comprehend or engage with, or different ways to, I guess, to encourage thought as well. I think an important thing with young people is sort of if you can sort of lead them towards the right answer rather than just trying to enforce it on them. Do you know what I mean? Because then I think when they can sort of get there themselves as well, that makes it a little bit more real. And they're trying to learn and they're trying to forge, especially as in the teenage years when they're trying to forge their own identity and stuff. So yeah, I guess there's lots of different ways. And by example as well, I think like kids really learn and engage well when they can actually, the more tangible it is. And I think that's really important thing when I said to you about how we try to recruit diverse volunteers. That's really, really effective. Like when they actually can see and they're like, yeah, okay, this is a scientist doesn't just look like a cis white male. Do you know what I mean? A scientist can look like this, or can look like that, and you know what I mean.
Like
and
me.
that's and so it's just sort of as well as this realization where you're not being too explicit. They could just, it's something they accept as a new sort of normal. This is actually no, this is the norm. You know what I mean? And that's what I think setting up the right things as normal is a really important part of that process. Obviously, for older people, it's going to be a little bit different and a little bit trickier because by the time we get older, we've got all these preconceptions that we come with. There's a lot of things that we just accept as a matter of fact without challenging because it's just been drilled into us. Do you know what I mean? So it can be a little bit harder to sort of break these perceptions, I think, actually, with older people by the time. And that's why we start young with the kids so young and trying to teach some of these lessons. But I think people who are older need to just have a similar approach. You don't know how long your life will be or not, and I don't think it's ever too late to sort of change, to reinvent yourself, to grow. I think the human process should be one constantly of growth, of learning, of development. And as long as we sort of think about life like that, as a journey and things, and you don't get stuck in these ruts where you've all these absolutes where you think, oh, is this me now? You know what I mean? Is this who I am? This is all I'll ever be. Of course, there's always something else you can do or try. And obviously, the reality of life might make that very difficult, and make it seem like really far away or unattainable. But there's different ways to do it. Do you know what I mean? And there is communities out there, and I think, I suppose, supporting each other and signposting people towards things is a good way to do it. But also with the online scenario, as much as there's all sorts of people would say, there's all sorts of negatives that come on with the internet and online spaces and things like that. There's actually so much gold on the internet in terms of knowledge, in terms of community, in terms of sharing. So as much as we see there's a lot of divisions and lines and stuff being drawn up in society in this space, there's also so much opportunity to connect with others, to learn from others. I love no matter something you'll do, if you're doing some DIY around the house, there's just a YouTube video somewhere with someone that's taken the time to explain how to do a bit of studying or something. You know what I mean? There's so much knowledge. There's papers on different concepts. There's so many free courses. I do free courses on FutureLearn, which is a wicked company, online school, university thing based in Camden. And they do all these online learning courses, and a lot of them are free. So there's all sorts of resources and things we can access. and there's different, obviously loads of different charities and support groups and things, and yeah, I feel like you know, people, like, as much as like there's a lot of negative things we're challenging in society and trends we're challenging right now, I also think there's a lot of hope, and I think there's a lot of hunger out there to like to tackle these things.
Amazing, really inspiring to hear. Um, while you were basically speaking, I was thinking that there was that piece you obviously spoke about,
Mm.
taking the children to go and see, these people, whether it's a scientist and things like that, and that
Mm.
goes to identity and belonging for them to say, I see myself in that person, you know,
Yeah,
which is like a really important piece for a young person, I always find.
yeah.
And I find that, even though, I mean, if you guys can just entertain me for a second, I find it that we come with like different layers and we're appealing and we never ever stop peeling. So even though the young person needs to be, we need to plant the seed and just give them that exposure to all the different things. And, with the older person, it's the unlearning to relearn piece.
Mhm.
So I'm intrigued to kind of find out in terms of your own kind of building belief within yourself. How does that work? Because I can see you obviously come across that you've got an amazing belief system within inside of you in terms of what you do and how you do things. So
Yeah.
I'm quite intrigued.
Well, I guess like my own life experience, you know, so you can see like probably a lot of my beliefs stem back to my own life experience, like this idea of like, you know, maybe like succumbing to failure. I've failed several times in my life in different various ways, you know what I mean?
You have to.
Yeah, you have to, but then like, you know, but I've experienced amazing things via those failures, you know, so like you know, I don't regret any like of those events in my life, because I think, oh, they've brought me to where I am now, and I know what I know now because of them, you know, like or it gave me the opportunity to this learning opportunity or something. And I guess like I suppose like having the sort of mixed backgrounds, and then even like living in Oxford as well, and somewhere that on the surface looks quite affluent and everything, but then obviously like everywhere has its areas where people are struggling or something like that. And then the same in Hackney, watching, you know, gentrification and everything going on here. And I don't know, like, and then just I am quite into politics. I'm a very political creature. Like, I'm a little bit obsessed with it. Some, if you know, people that know me are like, "Oh, Claude's on about the politics again." Yawn. But like, so like, I'm quite into that as well, and so that shapes a lot of my world view. And I, you know, you could even say like a lot of that. People not often make the connection, but I think, you know, coming from a sort of Christian household and like, you know, background and stuff, I mean, I don't like, I think that should really end up leaning towards sort of maybe left wing principles and stuff, you know, a little bit. So I think that's probably informed it somewhat. But obviously then going from Hackney and then going to Oxford and seeing quite different stark ways of living and like what people have available to them as well. So like is really different to like people that haven't, you know, grown up in purely one or the other and can't see that contrast and things, you know what I mean? So, you know, and then sort of knowing where people's lives lead sometimes based on nothing more than like the circumstance of where they're from, and not really reflecting like, you know, um how their capabilities or how society would judge them as being smart or successful and stuff, and like how we understand that. So I think all these different sort of experiences and be able to look at life in that way has sort of informed a lot of what I think. And I suppose it's it's about what questions you're encouraged to ask, right? So that's the most important thing. It's like, oh, you know, why is this like that? Do you know what I mean? Why is this working like that? Why is there, you know, why is it harder for some people to like get into this or that than it is others? And you know, and then you start to see things, and just like you start asking those questions, and you start to see things in society and like how they are working, and how that actually, you think about as well, like how that isn't necessarily the best thing for us. If you think about like the lack of diversity within certain sectors or certain levels of jobs, so as a society, what does that mean? That sort of means we're not like putting all our best minds on it, are we? We're not utilizing all our best minds. We're only drawing from a very small pool of minds, and there's a lot of really great minds going to waste, whether that's female minds or minds of people of color or working class minds. Do you know what I mean? So like, you know, it's within our collective interest, I think, to ask these questions, to try and address some of those issues, like, you know, it can like, and I think thinking about things collectively as well. So I'm more like definitely about sort of collectivism, and I think that just only will go to help make us all stronger as a whole. And I suppose that still that links to the mental health thing as well, right? Like the more people, the more support people have, the more we support each other, then we all become stronger because of that. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of, and you know, just the way we're doing things, there's all these charities and things that are going, you know, really the charities that want to exist. You know, there's all these things that we should sort of, it feels like we should be doing anyway as a society. Do you know what I mean? Like we should be taking care of mental health anyway. You know what I mean? We should be doing more work related learning anyway. You know what I mean? We shouldn't be like having lots of new food banks, or there should be lots of homelessness to address. You know what I mean? And yeah.
Of course. No, I was quite intrigued of how you explained, you know, the inclusion part, and I feel that in the last 12 months, inclusion, there's been so much noise just in the past 12 months, ever since, you know, the unfortunate, you know, death of George Floyd, in terms of especially giving the awakening that inclusion doesn't just come in race, it comes in all different forms.
Yeah.
Um, and I think even as not just race, but also inclusion, you know, a lot more has to be done. And what can we do to, you know, to have more of a pool of minds that are together? Because, you know, we're obviously seeing, you know, the things are slightly moving, but we need, you know, much more movement, much more sustainable change in terms of the inclusion space.
Yeah.
And I think that also falls into, you know, all of us being in lockdown for the past 12 months. It'll be, you know, 12 months very soon as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, what do you think needs to be done more in terms of, you know, bringing that pull, the belief, the mindsets, and just expanding on that? What?
I think like education. So like at Inspire, we like, so it say in direct response to Black Lives Matter and everything, we were like, right, actually, like, not to assume anything. So straight away we were like, okay, let us look at obviously our activities had always had a focus on diversity and inclusion, but like sometimes if you, even if you're working in that realm, you can get a little bit comfortable saying, oh, we're doing it, you know what I mean? But it's like, but are we doing everything we can in the best way we can? You know what I mean? So I think actually like testing yourself and going through a process of being, so we start to do some, you know, unconscious bias training, and then like start to actually really look at things like race, anti-racism, equity, and start to really investigate how we can actually truly call ourselves an anti-racist entity, you know. And it's not easy. I think people think, oh, I'm not racist, I'm anti-racist, like, you know. And actually anti-racism is like a lot sort of more in-depth, trickier thing than most people acknowledge. And like I think like as much as you can learn and just understand things from other people's perspectives, start to understand different cultures and understand that like maybe certain different needs or ways of looking at things, like, but with the idea of being sort of accommodating to like many people as possible, and obviously like underpinning all that a sense of like equal rights. You know what I mean? That's how we should be thinking about things. There's too much for ages, and obviously, you know, I'm sure you guys are fully aware, like, you know, there's been too much othering of people in our society, you know, for a very long time. And it's like something, unfortunately, I think is really sort of baked in to like the culture at the moment. You know what I mean? This othering of, whether it's the poor, othering of certain women, or othering of certain races, or othering of LGBT community and stuff. And so I think we just have to like really question like how we perceive stuff. And then if we're especially then as well, if we're representing certain communities and people and groups, really think about and be careful about how we represent them. You know, like that's another thing as well. So sometimes people maybe, and well, you saw that a lot probably over the last year, the Black Lives Matter thing. There's a lot of people, and okay, like their intentions are really good. Do you know what I mean? And they want to help and everything, but they don't necessarily have the information and knowledge they need to do it effectively. Do you know what I mean? Like, and even things like, you know, the posting of the black square with the Black Lives Matter hashtag, that was actually quite problematic. Do you know what I mean? Because like, while there was the protest going on and people were trying to post things from the protest and the movement with that hashtag, that was getting completely overcome with all these black squares. You know, it was almost like a blackout of actually the actual movement on the ground. You know, like so like I think like thinking about things like that, maybe like you think, oh, I'm gonna do this and this is how I support, but you got to think about it a little bit deeper, and then actually think about keep sort of tethered to the actual objective you're trying to reach. Because we see, and especially with like a lot of corporations and companies and stuff, they jump on these sort of causes with like a, you know, a bit like a gimmick, you know, like
More reactive than anything.
more reactive, and it's
Yeah.
like more virtue signaling, isn't it, really, than anything. And it's like, but did that really bring us closer to what we're actually trying to address and talk about? I suppose that's the big conversation we had at Inspired. You know, it was like, right, are we doing everything we can in this arena? You know what I mean? Like internally and externally. Do you know what I mean? Even like internally, do people feel comfortable enough to talk about issues of race and like, you know, and experiences of racism and stuff? Do you know what I mean? How are we tracking? Has anyone encountered this? Like, you know, like what's going? And so we have to ask these questions and have these difficult conversations, and obviously as well go into it knowing, and it doesn't matter whether you're white, black, whatever your identity, you know what I mean? These are not meant to be comfortable conversations, you know what I mean? It's not. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult and stuff, you know, and at times it's going to be painful, but we've got to do it. And it's well beyond time as well, you know, because like it's unbelievable we're talking about some of these concepts. And we're not talking about new stuff here. The Black Lives Matter movement isn't talking about new stuff, and it's incredible that we're still where we are even after all this time, and a lot of effort and groundwork that a lot of people have laid ahead of us, you know.
Absolutely. I think that's a really powerful point to make. A lot of people might want to concentrate on just what recent events, but the fact is you can go back centuries if you want. These are human issues. And the difference is right now, like you were pointing out before, we're more connected and we're actually able to all have the conversation, even by way of everyone can do a certain thing online or follow a certain hashtag. I like the call for more active, I guess, citizenship approaches, like where we think about what we're actually going to do. Just like everyone can think about what we can do for mental health, and there's all sorts of things we can do. You wanted to go for white collar boxing.
Yeah.
You put some skin in the game, you know. It's different.
Yeah.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
In that order.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really powerful thing to do. And I love the fact that you raised the notion that young people, in fact, are much more active these days. And I think we could see that from whether it's Greta Thunberg or
Yeah.
when there were protests happening, even here in Manchester, it was young people who took to the
Yeah,
street.
it's a young movement, and like, you know, even if you look at things like young youth parliament and stuff, and the issues that come out on top for there, like, you know, environment, racism, Knife crime as well, actually, I think is quite a high one, and things like that. But young people are switched on, you know what I mean? And especially when I was delivering the STEM program, you just see their relationship to actually digital spaces and technology is very different to, like, I mean, obviously we've been there the whole time, but we had to be introduced to these things as these new concepts and stuff. You know what I mean? Which we're still, even after all these years, we're still understanding, because it's constantly in flux and growing and developing. But they've grown up with this thing that this has just been their reality for the entirety of their life. It's very interesting sometimes when you're like doing something with a young person and they have a bit of technology or something in their hand, how intuitive it seems to them, you know, like how easy they can connect with it. Or when I had like some professional in and they're explaining something, they're like, oh, this is quite complicated and sophisticated, they're explaining it. And then the young person or kid's just like, but why? And then they catch themselves for a moment, they stop and they go, actually, yeah, why? They've just taken it as like, this is how it is, you know what I mean? And not without really seriously questioning. This kid comes from this like rudimentary understanding of it and asks a basic question. And actually, it can be quite interesting, that new, fresh perspective on things.
It's true. I mean, you had to teach a lot more about, say, biometrics with security in the past, but now it's like it's standard. So
yeah, it's everywhere. Everyone's got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You only see it on spy films, didn't you? Yeah. There's like, hey, I've got a text message, biometrics.
Facial recognition, like boom. I think for me, one of the things I wanted to say was the idea of also doing things like life drawing, the martial arts, all these other things that take people into a space where they're learning a completely new skill, trying something new, the things that you're involved with, even music with the DJing, things that allow you to express yourself and find a creative outlet. I think those are also quite.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think so. Like when I was talking about that art is just a word thing, I mean that was a big part of our community art projects. You know, like having a creative outlet, like I think can't be understated. You know, it's really good, like for sort of mental health, and to like be able to create and have a little bit of ownership over this thing you made, and and be able in control of sort of why you're doing it as well, right? You know, it's not necessarily a job. Like, I earned a bit of money like doing life drawing and whatever, but but I enjoy it, and that's like really important. The same with the DJing. Like I've never earned much money from the DJing apart from like when working in radio and stuff. But I just like love it so much, I mean, it's so much fun. When this lockdown started, me and some mates were doing this radio station called Tempo Schmempo. So every weekend we were just like doing a whole weekend of like programming. We had people from like New Zealand and other peeps all over the place, like sending in these shows, and we're all like just doing these radio broadcasts and stuff. That was really fun, and that initial lockdown that really helped me get through it. I had this thing, like little project to crack on with and look forward to each weekend. I can't go out, but I have a big rinse out in the living room with doing this DJing and stuff, and that's been really helpful and stuff. And then this year I've been trying to do like a drawing a day. I haven't quite stuck to it, but that's been nice as well, doing a lot more drawing, and I've just taken the opportunity to learn new skills. Like I've started doing this digital drawing class as well and things like that. And so there's like all sorts of different, I think it's really important thing for people to have. I'm very fortunate to have had various different projects and side things like that. But I really think it can help people also understand themselves as well a little bit, I guess, because I think with art, it's not just about the skill of what you do, but it's another way of sort of representing ideas or the world and different concepts as well. So for me as well, like art has been very good way of personal growth and personal understanding, when you're just trying to something that we just take as basic and like simple actually can be quite complex and mean different things to different people as well. I think when I did my end of year degree piece, and I started off looking at this concept of sort of religion versus science, and but then sort of to understand that actually they're not necessarily that different, and in fact a lot of different things we like know from our dominant religions can actually inform and guide what we do, even in the scientific field. You know what I mean? So, and then I started looking more at sort of Eastern religions, and so there's a big difference in, like, you know, how East and West thinks about the sense of self and spirituality, and that actually informs a lot of the science or a lot of their folklore, and then for a lot of their science fiction. You know, so like say like from a more Western culture and you know, a sort of Christian sort of outlook in terms of how we think about itself, we sort of think of an eternal soul and this God that we're answerable to, you know, and that informs. So then, if you think about all our sort of narratives and things like that, when we think about maybe things like AI, we have a lot of anxiety around AI and what that could mean. Could that mean the end of humans? You know, and you think about things like, you know, all our narratives like Terminator, The Matrix. Every time people mess with that, it ends in disaster, right? It's like, oh my God. And it's like, it's this underlying thing about, like, you know, this folklore about it being an affront to God. You know what I mean? If for people to create life, you know what I mean? We're not meant to fill that role, you know, in that way. Whereas for like the Eastern religions, where they think about the mind like a succession of mind moments, not dissimilar to like how a computer processor works, you know, like a succession of moments so fast that it creates the illusion of a continuum or ongoing conscious and stuff. And they think about concepts like AI and creating like artificial life and artificial intelligence completely differently to how we do. Do you know what I mean? And so that's the sort of thing I like, having little realizations like that through the art. That's really helped inform my understanding of sort of people and cultures and different things like that. Yeah.
Powerful. Powerful. I love it. As you were saying it, I was even going, you can fathom how if you're bound or restricted by a certain view and you step into a different space that perhaps doesn't even see life or existence the same way, what you're able to draw or imagine, just like we were talking about, whatever situation you're in or circumstance you're in, you can't really imagine something you haven't been made aware of or seen. It would be like watching a football game for the first time and going, oh, you can do that for a career.
Yeah.
Without seeing it, you wouldn't have thought about it. And that's a great way we've got to liberate our minds in certain ways as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially if you think about like just the way society works as well, I think like going forward, people need to be like as adaptable as they can be, because things like the jobs market changes so fast, like the way we live changes, like can change quite fast and stuff. You know what I mean? And you know, it's not really like a situation people necessarily have jobs for life all the time anymore. Even if they do gain a profession and become a professional, there's a good chance they might think, oh, actually, I want to pursue this or something else. And I think that's not something that it's something we should encourage, because that is the reality right now. You know what I mean? So we need to equip people to thrive and live within that as well, but not in the sense of like a gig economy sense. There, I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, no.
But like that wasn't an advocacy for the gig economy. It's like, let's just be clear about that.
Yeah. Let's explore different avenues.
Yeah.
I love that. I think we could definitely talk for hours. So I'll say that we'll transition towards, say, the closing. And the first thing I want to ask you before we get into our final questions is, what's something that you are currently trying to build some belief in that you can achieve?
What, in myself?
Yeah, you personally.
Oh, okay. So I know you sort of like, you know, because I suppose you said like, you know, I do lots of things and, you know, and I'm trying, but I think I would like to find somewhere solid, like, you know, where I can be more effective in society or something like that. So like, as much as, you know, I've done a lot of things and I've got a lot of experience. I'm not necessarily like an expert in anything, but like I have got a lot of different experience. But even then, I still feel like I'm trying to grow as a person, and like, you know, maybe sometimes I like, oh, maybe I could be a bit more dedicated to this or that sometimes. and I suppose like something I'm trying to grow in as well. I'm trying to be a lot more creative as well. There's a long period of my life where I felt like I wasn't doing a lot of art or anything creative at the time, and I think that can impact my mood, or maybe you could say mental health, a lot when I'm not. I'm definitely a lot happier when I'm doing creative things. Like that does like fill a void, shall we say? And so that's something I've been really trying to concentrate on doing a bit more. I think what I'm struggling with sometimes a little bit at the moment is like, going into the third lockdown, sometimes you can feel like very unmotivated. I know what I've got to do, like, and it, definitely needs doing and some things. I just feel a bit like, oh my God, and obviously like I miss everyone as well. And what was a weird thing, because I was with my partner, we were talking about potentially moving to Bristol, and I had all these great plans for 2020. I was going to do all these things. I was going to fight in white collar. I was going to, knock the other guy. All my mates were coming to watch and cheer me on. Like I was going to go on holiday here. I was going to like have real good quality time with people. I'm of the age, lots of my friends have started families and have kids. I was going to be Uncle Claude to all these different kids.
Sounds like middle name Balboa.
Yeah. So like, and so a lot of things that happen. So like, I really miss everyone. There's all these obviously things that are now being put a bit on the back burner, even in my own life. Planning my own life out and what I thought I'd be doing when, like, I became the marketing manager in Spire late 2019. And then for most of last year, I've been sort of furloughed. I've probably done my job for about 3 or 4 months in this specific role, and a lot of the other time I've actually not been working. So like, it's been a very sort of strange time, and I haven't achieved all the things I thought I'd wanted to by now. But again, it's that sort of thing, like being adaptable and being able to roll the punches helps me like deal with that. And then instead of looking at that and just looking at it as a time that's gone and wasted, I've done things like online courses or things like that. It's like, okay, I'll take this chance to, like, whatever I think I want to improve or knowledge I want to acquire or however I want to develop, like I'll take the opportunity to do that and stuff. Or maybe, you can't see people in person, but maybe sometimes you call a friend up you haven't seen in ages and have a one-to-one phone conversation that you might not have otherwise had if you didn't have this time and space to really think about who needs, like, who should I get in touch with right now, or so I think we have to, especially like, see the opportunities in whatever the situation is as well. Whatever the situation changes, there's probably a little opportunity to do something or resolve something maybe, and then like once you recognize it, to try and take it, I guess, as best you can.
Excellent. And sorry, I've just been taking in everything you've been saying, holding on to your every last word. So, even though I'm quiet here, listen, I'm taking mental notes in there as well, because it's so inspiring and amazing to just, hear how an active citizen you are. And a lot of the time I also find, even as as Black brothers, is that you don't really get an opportunity to kind of invest this kind of time in each other and trying to find out what we're doing and feed into that, because you've also got something that I want to identify with in terms of being an active citizen as well, and all the listeners as well. It goes back to that thing you said, that you don't know what you don't know, and hearing all the wonderful things you're doing, not just within your community, but in all the different communities for the younger generations, feeding into the whole eco of it as well, is just amazing to see, and so positive and inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it, like with the young people as well. But the work with young people has come from, I really enjoy, like, working with children and young people. I don't do it as much directly now, obviously, because I'm working in marketing a bit more now, but I still like working, there's still a connection there to them. And again, like, I suppose I'm representing them sometimes in some way. So obviously they're always at the forefront of my mind still. But I've like, throughout my life, I think what I've come back to very often doing work with young people and kids are just, they're fascinating, man. And they give me hope, man. They're like fascinating and they give me hope. And like, I'd say like there is like some selfish incentive there too. Do you know what I mean? Because like they just are like incredible.
I think it's that thing of like, even though you grow up, there's still a kid inside of you.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Like, and I think actually I've done a lot. I've done a lot to maintain that inner child a little bit.
you do
Like,
need to, yeah.
I like him. I want him to stick around.
Fabulous, fabulous. So in
Yeah.
that case, that kind of brings us to our special questions we've had prepared. They've been brewing. Okay, prepare yourself. Okay, so first and foremost is, what's the best thing about being black?
The best thing about being black?
Yeah.
That's a weird question. Like, I guess like, that is interesting. I mean, I guess that like people, there's some cool things. Like people have this perception of you. They just assume that you must be a cool guy right from the get-go. That's a stereotype I don't mind. Yeah. And yeah, I don't like I think as well that sense of when I said that I moved to Oxford, obviously like on the surface of it, very much like not the same as everyone else, you know what I mean? And I think that did help me forge that path of sort of, being an individual, do you know what I mean? Like I sort of had, like I felt like maybe I had to be and stuff. And that sort of maybe that feeling of maybe sometimes adversity or being different, but I think that somehow that gave me some sort of a bit of strength as well, like just this and a sort of idea of defiance a little bit, I guess. Do you know what I mean? I think that's why I just keep pressing on sometimes no matter what happens. You know what I mean? Like, nah, man, like you're not telling me like what I can be, or who I am or whatever, and so yeah, there is that, but I don't know, it's a weird one. Like I think as well, like it's a strange one as well, because I obviously my life experiences that I feel like maybe quite different to a lot of other black people I know and things. So I'm very aware of that, and I'm aware when I'm talking about issues around race of that as well, not to just like project my personal experience onto the black experience in general. You know what I mean? So like, and that's something I constantly think about and stuff. And also, I think that one of the best things is the culture as well, the multi-heritage culture. I absolutely love that, and and there's certain things about black culture I really love as well. Which I missed definitely when I was in Oxford or Bristol and other places. You know what I mean? Like the way I'm half Jamaican as well, and so like sometimes there's just certain things with a sense of humor and things, and just that that black people understand and connect with and stuff that sometimes I had missed when I was away from like multicultural areas and things. Yeah.
Amazing, excellent. So the next one is, who taught you how to shave? Wow.
Who taught me how to shave?
Yeah.
Wow, no, look at this.
That's why I'm looking. I'm like, that's looking good.
Yeah, no, really, no, man. This is like I'm like the lockdown catfish. Like, like no one really so. My dad got me a shave when I was younger, and I used to sort of shave a bit, but my facial hair never grew for ages. For a long time, I didn't have very much facial hair, and then when it did start growing, it's just the barber used to just do it, So and it's weird. It sort of grows in this sort of shape, but if you could see it clearer, it's a mess, man. It looks like I'm just been so still that I'm sprouting moss on my chin. So yeah, so maybe I still need some lessons. That's the answer. When I was a little kid, though, I do remember seeing my dad shave. I did that thing, I'm sure a lot of kids have done it. One eyebrow went with a Bic, because I was watching dad shave, and I was like, I want to try that. And then I obviously was looking for some hair on my little face, and that was the only hair I could find. So I had probably like one eyebrow from age like 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 or something, like. Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Or you do that little cool
Yeah, I
line
was
with
like,
two.
it's that sort of thing, you know, when kids do stuff like that and they know they messed up. They don't know why or how it's like they uh-oh, should have done that.
It was at that moment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Actually, that links very well to the next question, which is, what is the advice that you would give to your younger self or to a younger person right now?
Oh, okay. So yeah, to my younger self, it would have been to be like, even though I've obviously tried and pursued a lot of different things, I think I would have told my younger self to be a bit more brave about that. I still I think I was influenced a lot by when I was growing up, the perceptions of where I should be at certain stages in my life, or how things work or what I should be aiming for. And I think and I could definitely recognize in my life where I made mistakes or bad choices, because I felt because I was responding to expectation rather than listening to sort of my own wants and things like that. And there's misconceptions about how things are in a certain way, and there's no way to really know that at that age, I guess. And it's easier to recognize in hindsight, isn't it? But I wish maybe there was something I was passionate about, and I threw myself into it just that little bit more maybe, and things like that. I think there's, like we said, with being creative. So I used to learn piano when I was in school, and I am again now. I really, really regret the sabbatical, the 15-year sabbatical in the middle, where I wasn't doing any of that. You know what I mean? And I feel like playing music and stuff is something that's really therapeutic. It's a really great skill to have, and I think it's a really easy way to connect with people and make them happy. You know what I mean? I think something intrinsic with music, that it just talks to everyone. You play a baby some music, that baby's got to start nodding its head. You know what I mean? And even I've seen things where somebody has maybe Alzheimer's or something, and they play the music from back in the day, and it can trigger a small period of them being lucid again and remembering, or something like that. There's something powerful about music, I think, that and it just speaks to everyone. And so I think that's if you could do anything for yourself, like learning an instrument or and indulging in that, is a really good thing to do. What else would I tell my younger self? I don't know what else really. It's the sort of thing. I wish I knew what I know now in my younger body, but but then if I knew what I do now at that age, maybe I wouldn't have had some of the experiences that I'd had. You know what I mean? So it's a weird variable one, isn't it? Sort of thing.
Bit of a paradox.
Yeah. But sometimes my naivety helped me do something that I wouldn't otherwise done. You know what I mean? And that worked out in a good way. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Tough one.
Yeah. Oh, man, you handled it beautifully. I think, it's really...
But so what would you tell young people now, I guess, is just I think it's more, but with young people, it's most important to encourage them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing. And it to make them recognize, and I think recognizing self-worth is a big thing with young people. I think right now, I think we need to lift them up and boost them, and it's okay to be an individual. You're not good at this and that, that's fine too. You know what I mean? There's something you're good at. You know what I mean? Your aspirations, maybe they got more humble aspirations, that can be fine as well. We should, and how we tell them what success is as well. I think the way we define success to young people is really important, and it needs to be a little bit less materialistic as well. You know what I mean? It's too much of that telling them you need to buy this or have that or earn a certain amount or things like that. Do you know what I mean? There's more to life than that, and the job should be thought of as more than, or your whatever vocation you decide for your life or who you're going to be. It's got to be more about being well-rounded individuals and informing and being honest to who you are and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Rather than sort of trying to do this like, I don't know, a tick box of life or something like that. Mhm.
Perfect. That's
Mhm.
perfect. And finally, what do you wish more men talked about?
What do I wish more men talked about? So I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because like from the male identity thing, like I don't know loads about sort of a lot of things that around support things around that. I think there needs to be sort of maybe more of that in a healthy way, because there's a lot of these sort of male things which are trying to stupidly counteracts like the sort of feminist movement or other movements and stuff, which it shouldn't be thought of. And I think actually men should be talking about feminism and stuff a lot more. I think like, you know, something we've done as a society is we made feminism more about sort of empowering girls and women, which is a great thing. It's important, but we've missed the trick with like actually a lot of what we should have been doing is educating boys and men. You know what I mean? It's not with feminist issues, the problem isn't stemming from women. Do you know what I mean? It's how like men and boys interact with women and stuff. And I think that's something I wish that men talked about a lot more, like is understanding maybe those feminist issues and stuff. But then also like we need to break down a lot of myths around what it means to be a man. And there's still like a lot of old pervasive like macho nonsense and stuff. But I think, you know, it's all right to encourage men and boys to maybe be strong and stuff like that. But again, it's how we define that strength, isn't it? You know, like what does it mean to be strong? What does it mean to be a man? You know what I mean? And I think so that we need to work out how we're going to define that, like in a bit better ways and a bit more healthy ways, I think. And that's really important. And encourage men to talk about this thing, because sometimes there's contradictions where they're still like we're telling men and boys like this old model of what it is to be strong and stuff that actually doesn't encourage them to talk about things in an honest and open way, or like seek help when they need to seek it. You know what I mean? Need to like things like to acknowledge that actually, like, you know, as a guy you can still be quite a vulnerable person. You know what I mean? Like you know, if you think about a lot of the like especially like if you think about young people or young men growing up, even if they're in gangs or whatever, involved in anything, actually like when you dig deep and you find out their sort of family background or their lived situation, they're very vulnerable young people. You know what I mean? That's what when we talk about at Aspire, like the young people we work with that may be having difficulties, like they've been excluded from school, whatever, like that's how we view them. That's how we talk about them. They're vulnerable young people that need help, you know what I mean? And like just need to be like better understood, you know?
Fantastic, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my take on men and women and that sort of thing is it's just like with people. I think we're all complementary and that's the whole Ubuntu thing. It's all about togetherness. I am because you are, and it boils down to understanding each other and realizing, yeah, we're complementary to each other. It's not I'm better than or you're better than.
No,
We're
definitely not.
just different, and yeah, but all
Yeah, and we need that variety as well. You know, that variety makes us richer collectively, doesn't it? Like you know, imagine if everyone was just the same, or like, you know, that'd be boring. Like, you know, so like, you know, I like anything with diversity and different perspectives and different walks of life. Like it's always a benefit. It's always a learning opportunity, isn't it? So it's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think on that note, I'm really grateful to our mutual friend Marla for connecting us because
Yeah, really good. And like, you know about Rise and stuff as well.
do tell, do tell.
That's so Marla and my partner Helen run a charity called Rise, and that's with young creatives and stuff, and helping young people find their voice in society. They got some amazing young people, amazing young creatives doing all sorts of stuff. and like finding different ways to express themselves and their ideas and their thoughts. And before lockdown, we used to do these events. I DJ those events sometimes, and then we'd have all the young people doing live performances and things. So they do some really great work. So yeah, it totally makes sense. And me and Marla met working at Bang, so that's how we met. So when I was managing the radio side, I used to have a community charity side as well, and Marla was the manager of the charity side, and that's how we met each other. And then when my partner, I got her a job there working on the charity side with Marla, and when we all left, they started a charity together. So like, you know, again, like all these different things, and like, you know, bringing different people together, and look, amazing things come out of it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Man, I can't wait to hang out. I won't get in the ring with you. I know your background's professional.
We'll spectate.
Yeah, you never know. Like, you know, anything can happen. But like, I'd like, you know, it'd be great to meet you guys in person and stuff. Like, I think this is a fascinating concept and podcast and stuff. Like, and I really enjoyed talking with you as well. It's been amazing.
Definitely. We would also, you know, love to, you know, when we have that little bit of normality to go out, we would love for you to, you know, partake and be a part of, you know, even one of our events where we go into the outdoor and just bond with each other, speak with each other and learn from each other. So, you know, listen, learn, lead.
Yeah,
just grow
like
with each
that
other,
sounds
so.
awesome. Yeah, I didn't even know you did stuff like that. So yeah, I'm game. Yeah, wicked. Yeah.
That's amazing. Claude, just thank you for being you, man. You're a shining example of what someone who not only believes in themselves and is aspiring to achieve certain things can do, but someone who then does that for other people, which is even just more incredible.
Thanks, Dane. I'm gonna blush.
Someone passing the tissue.
I'm all right. I'm all right.
No, honestly,
Yeah.
it's amazing. The fact that that you've done it as a career, but that you do these things on the side and you volunteer your time and
personally and professionally.
Yeah, I think like as well, I think like how I've ended up doing it is just that I am like, I just take sometimes opportunities as they come. So sometimes it's not always been that I'm necessarily even specifically seeking the stuff out, but sometimes the opportunity comes and it sounds like a good idea and then I do it. And then sometimes as well, like I will admit, sometimes I need to kick up the bum. So even if I'm not sure, like if I can do something, I will just say yes to something and put that, like, just to put that pressure on myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll just commit to it. I like, oh God, that's going to be tough. But then it's like, you've committed to it now, so you've got to do it. And that's a good way to do it as well. So like, you know, I suppose like sometimes you can find different ways to manage yourself. You know what I mean? I can just be like, right, this is how I'm going to get into this and I'm going to do this. And then, you know, you get through it and it's like, and then the good feeling as well once you've done it and you get through it and stuff, or something went well, that's a really nice payoff as well too. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, great man. That's all I can say then.
Yeah, thank you. You guys are great guys too, man. Thank you very much for having me on. Like, I'm looking forward to like checking out your other content you might have and stuff as well. And looking into this and things. Like, it's a great idea. I'll be catching the next one for sure.
Perfect.
Amazing.
If there's other people out there who either want to connect with you or to find out more about the things you're involved with, what's the best way for them to look you up or connect? Or
so I guess like on my personal socials, it's just me like sort of waxing lyrical most of the time about politics. So like, I don't know how interesting that will be, but on my Instagram, I more have, I guess, is like posting things, different things I'm involved in, or LinkedIn actually, if like for work. So Claude Barbé-Brown on LinkedIn. On Instagram, I'm actually Monsieur_Pixel with 2 X's, because that was a little DJ name I was rocking with for a little bit and I just didn't get rid of it. And then there's all sorts of drawings and different things I'm posting on there. And then obviously I am Inspire as well. So at Inspire EVP. So if you look for that on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you can see the work we're doing there. And then obviously, like, again, I'm also Hammer and Tongue Hackney. So HT_Hackney. and that's the monthly poetry slam, which is really, really great. Actually, it's a lot of fun. We normally have a featured poet like each month. It's first Tuesday every month. We have a featured poet, and then we have like 8 slammers who compete, and we take all their sort of pain and sorrow and turn it into a score out of 10. And then, and then we have them back to do it again against other regional finalists and stuff. So yeah, and so that's basically what I think that's basically where I have stuff. I don't have much artwork up or anything like that at the moment, but like occasionally I'm posting drawings and things and different odds and ends. Oh, I'm on Mixcloud too. You can listen to my old shows on Mixcloud as well. So like, yeah. The Man Who Knows, I think that might be called that, or Claude Barbé-Brown. But
is that a mix of like dubstep and
the Mixcloud? Yeah, so that's just old radio shows, and that's like normally my formula is sort of I start with hip hop and then I go into some sort of I don't know, some sort of funk or something like and then into a bit of house, and then it might go into a bit of garage, and then it probably ends really nasty and goes into some drum and bass and dubstep and stuff. I'm a bass head, like I love bangers, like so that's my wheelhouse and stuff. And obviously hip hop is my first love though, definitely. Like that's the thing that informed a lot of my other music tastes, and like and obviously like I'm not a big on poetry myself, but that's my connection to it really. Like with the Hammer and Tongue thing we do, the best event we do, we have rappers versus poets at the beginning of each season in September, which is amazing. Like we had Tony D at the last one. Just some incredible rappers. Reload, like some people if people into their grime and stuff, they might know Reload through Grime Daily. He's actually one of our teachers at Inspire as well. So yeah, all sorts of peeps doing all sorts of amazing things. I think that's a good thing as well. Connecting with other people. Like, you know, even if you don't know something or something's not your specialty, you connect to other people and that can be your in. And yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Got a long list to write, Ray.
Sorry, say that again.
I said we've got a long list to write.
Oh, listen, I've been taking so many notes.
Yeah, I'll send you a little message later on with the handles and stuff. So perfect. Like, yeah, excellent. No probs. All right, guys.
All right, you take care, Claude.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So much
Have
fun.
A good weekend.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed creating.
Don't forget to follow, like, share, and connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our latest episode and listen to any you missed. And tune in next episode.
Take care.